Welcome to Rare Coins Numics, where the world of valuable and rare quarter-dollar coins comes to life. Explore these timeless treasures and their rich history. Watch till the end to see their true worth unfold and discover what makes them so special. The 1974 USA quarter-dollar coin is one of the most fascinating pieces of U.S. currency ever minted, carrying with it a rich history, stunning design, and a legacy that transcends its time in circulation. When you think of coins that have made an impact on the collecting world, the 1974 quarter may not immediately spring to mind. Yet, when you dive into its history, the story behind its minting, the intricacies of its design, and the secrets it holds, it becomes clear why this quarter is so much more than just a small piece of currency. It's a treasure trove of American history. Let's take a moment to reflect on the era in which the 1974 quarter was born. The 1970s were a decade of significant change in the United States. The nation was dealing with the aftermath of the tumultuous 1960s, a time marked by social upheaval, the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, and a rapidly changing global landscape. By the mid-1970s, the country had entered a period of relative calm, but the effects of the previous decade were still felt across the nation. This was a time of reflection, renewal, and uncertainty as the U.S. tried to find its footing in the world again. Within this historical backdrop, the minting of the 1974 quarter was anything but ordinary. The U.S. Mint had, by this time, been minting quarters for over 180 years. The design that graced the 1974 quarter was part of the ongoing tradition that had started in 1796, when the first quarter was struck. Since that first coin, the design had evolved several times, reflecting the country's changing values and symbols. By 1974, the design on the quarter was the same as it had been since 1932, the famous image of George Washington, the first President of the United States. But while the design remained unchanged, the times were far from static, and with the coin's minting, the U.S. Mint set in motion the production of a piece of American history that would become highly sought after by collectors. To truly understand the appeal of the 1974 quarter, it's essential to grasp the context in which it was created. The U.S. Mint was operating in an era of transition. By the 1970s, the nation was starting to deal with the challenges of inflation, changes in metal composition for coinage, and growing concern about the rising cost of raw materials. This was the decade when the U.S. Mint began experimenting with alternative metals for coin production. The 1974 quarter, however, was struck from a copper-nickel clad composition, a material that had been used in U.S. coins since 1965. This particular composition, a blend of 75% copper and 25% nickel, was chosen not only for its durability but also for its cost-effectiveness. The U.S. Mint had faced significant challenges during the 1960s, as rising silver prices made it increasingly expensive to mint coins from silver. As a result, the quarter had shifted from being a primarily silver coin to the copper-nickel clad composition we recognize today. In 1974, this material was still in widespread use, but little did anyone know at the time that this seemingly mundane coin would one day become a prized artifact. At a glance, the 1974 quarter might appear like any other. Its obverse, featuring a profile of George Washington, was designed by John Flanagan, and its reverse, featuring an eagle, was designed by Frank Gasparo. These images had become iconic, representing not only the nation's first president but also the strength and unity of the American people. But there was something about the 1974 quarter that made it unique, a feature that would come to define its collector appeal and set it apart from other quarters in the history of U.S. coinage. As we look deeper into the coin's minting details, we can begin to unravel the mystery that makes the 1974 quarter so special. While the vast majority of these coins were minted with the familiar copper-nickel clad composition, there were a select few that were minted with an unusual flaw. This error, although seemingly minor, would prove to be a game-changer in the world of coin collecting. You see, a small number of 1,974 quarters were struck with an unexpected overmint mark, an issue that, in the world of numismatics, makes a coin incredibly rare and highly valuable. The overmint mark on these coins was a subtle mistake, one that could easily be overlooked by the untrained eye. But for those who were paying close attention to the details, this overmint mark represented a key clue in the search for valuable coins. The overmint mark was a result of a combination of factors during the minting process, including issues with the dies used to strike the coins. While it might sound like an insignificant error, to collectors and numismatists, the presence of such a flaw transforms an ordinary quarter into an extraordinary one. Now, imagine you're a collector in the early 1970s, casually searching through rolls of freshly minted quarters. You're looking for coins to add to your collection, maybe some pieces from various years to complete your set. And then, out of nowhere, you find it, a 1974 quarter with an overmint mark. It's a rare sight, a coin that stands out among the others. At first, you might not fully appreciate the significance of this discovery, but as time goes on and the value of these flawed quarters rises, you begin to realize that you've stumbled upon something truly remarkable. Fast forward to today, and those rare 1974 quarters with the overmint mark have become some of the most sought-after coins in the world. In the world of numismatics, rarity is everything. The fewer the coins that were struck with a particular error or feature, the more valuable they become. And this particular error in the 1974 quarter has turned out to be one of the most lucrative finds for coin collectors. So, why does the 1974 quarter with the overmint mark hold such immense value today? To understand that, we have to look at the broader trends in the coin collecting world. Over the years, the demand for rare and unique coins has only grown, fueled by the increasing recognition of the value of historical artifacts. Collectors today are more informed than ever before, and the rise of online marketplaces has made it easier for them to track down and purchase these rare coins. But what really sets the 1974 quarter apart from other coins is its story. It's not just a piece of currency, it's a snapshot of a moment in time. It represents a fleeting error in the minting process, a mistake that turned out to be a stroke of fortune for those lucky enough to find it. It also serves as a reminder of the changing times in which it was created, the shifting economic landscape, the growing tension between inflation and the cost of raw materials, and the gradual transition away from silver in U.S. coinage. Now, here's where the story takes a truly exciting turn. Despite the relative obscurity of the 1974 quarter in its time, today it's worth a small fortune. If you happen to possess one of these rare quarters with the overmint mark, then you could be holding a coin that's worth a staggering $123,000 or more. For those of you who are wondering how you can tell if your 1974 quarter is one of the rare ones, the key is to examine it closely for that overmint mark. These markings are tiny and subtle, but they make all the difference in determining the coin's value. If you think you found one, it's best to have it authenticated by a professional numismatist to verify its authenticity. Once confirmed, you'll have in your hands a piece of American history that could make you a small fortune. The 1981 USA $quarter coin is one of those intriguing pieces of U.S. currency that might seem ordinary at first glance but holds a fascinating history, a unique design, and an appeal to collectors that's built upon its rarity and the story it tells. While quarters have been a staple of American currency for more than 2 centuries, the 1981 quarter is one of those unsung coins that has captured the attention of numismatists and collectors, especially when it comes to its rare variants. If you think this quarter is just another everyday coin, think again. This quarter has a story that reaches far beyond its initial circulation, and you may just be surprised by its value today. To understand the allure of the 1981 quarter, let's take a step back in time and examine the broader context of the era. The early 1980s in the United States was a time of significant transition, particularly in the realm of economics. The U.S. was in the midst of grappling with the aftermath of the 1970s, a decade that had been marked by economic turmoil, rising inflation, and energy crises. By 1981, the country was entering into what would become known as the Reagan era, with political shifts, a new approach to economic policies, and a focus on recovery after years of stagnation. The U.S. Mint, however, was still largely focused on producing coins that would carry the nation through these uncertain times, with the 1981 quarter being just one example. The design of the 1981 quarter, like those before it, was rooted in tradition. The quarter, first introduced in 1796, had gone through various design changes over the years. By the early 20th century, the Washington quarter, first introduced in 1932, had become the primary design seen on quarters. This design was the work of sculptor John Flanagan, and it depicted George Washington, the first president of the United States, in a profile view. The reverse side of the coin featured an eagle, symbolizing the strength and majesty of the United States. These images had become iconic, so much so that by the time the 1981 quarter was minted, they had become a well-known part of American identity. In the context of 1981, the U.S. Mint was still producing quarters using the same copper-nickel-clad composition that had been in use since 1965. This material was chosen for its durability and cost-effectiveness, as the rising price of silver had forced the mint to abandon the silver composition of coins like the quarter. The quarter was now made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, and the 1981 issue followed the same pattern, with each coin weighing in at 5.67 grams and measuring 24.3 millimeters in diameter. The design itself remained unchanged from previous years, with the Washington profile and eagle still taking center stage. But it was the production process, the minting details, and the rare variants that would ultimately give the 1981 quarter its true value in the world of coin collecting. Now, let's take a deeper dive into the details of the minting process for the 1981 quarter. The U.S. Mint, in an effort to keep up with the demand for coins in circulation, produced the 1981 quarters in high volumes. These coins were struck at several mint locations, including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Most of the quarters produced were regular, run-of-the-mill examples, but as with any mass production, there were always chances for errors or variations in the coins. These small imperfections or anomalies can turn a common coin into a rare, highly valuable collectible. One of the most important details about the 1981 quarter, especially for collectors, is the presence of certain minting variations that make some coins more valuable than others. In the case of the 1981 quarter, one of the key features that collectors are on the lookout for is the presence of a particular error. Some 1981 quarters were struck with a die crack or other minting flaws that make them stand out. These errors can range from small, almost invisible flaws to more significant ones, and the rarer and more noticeable the error, the higher the coin's value can be. Collectors often seek these types of coins because they are unique, coins that weren't meant to leave the mint in that form but somehow did. This brings us to the question of how these rare 1981 quarters end up in the hands of collectors. Many of these quarters, with their minting errors or unusual characteristics, are discovered when people go through their spare change or examine coins that they've accumulated over the years. In some cases, collectors may even specifically seek out these coins from coin rolls or uncirculated sets. But whether you find a rare 1981 quarter in your pocket change or from a specialized dealer, the discovery of an error coin can be an exciting and rewarding experience. Now, we must also address the appeal that these quarters hold among collectors. Why would a coin that was minted in such high quantities become so desirable in the first place? The simple answer is rarity. While most 1981 quarters are fairly common, the small percentage of error coins or unusual variations are much rarer. And in the world of coin collecting, rarity equals value. Numismatists are always on the lookout for coins that are unusual in some way, whether it's a design flaw, an unexpected over-mint mark, or an off-center strike. These small differences can make a huge difference in the value of a coin, transforming it from an everyday piece of currency to a prized collectible. What makes the 1981 quarter particularly intriguing is its unique place in the timeline of U.S. coinage. The coin's design had remained relatively unchanged for decades by this point, and the 1981 quarter was part of a larger pattern of coin production in the post-silver era. Collectors love coins that have historical significance, and the 1981 quarter, in its own way, serves as a symbol of a particular time in U.S. history. It reflects the economic climate of the early 1980s, the political changes that were taking place under the Reagan administration, and the shift in the country's approach to currency production. So, what does this mean for the 1981 quarter's value today? The vast majority of 1981 quarters are worth only their face value, 25 cents. However, when it comes to those rare error coins, the situation is very different. Some of these rare coins, depending on their condition and the specific error or variation they contain, have sold for significant sums. In fact, the most valuable 1981 quarters are worth a staggering $117,000. To understand how a coin could be worth such a large amount of money, it's important to realize that in the world of coin collecting, value is driven by a combination of rarity, demand, and condition. A coin that is rare and in excellent condition will always fetch a higher price than one that's more common or heavily worn. The 1981 quarter's value comes from its scarcity in certain error forms, making it a highly sought-after coin among collectors. In conclusion, the 1981 USA $quarter coin is more than just a piece of currency, it's a window into a pivotal time in American history, a reflection of the economic challenges and changes of the early 1980s. And a highly collectible item that can fetch an astonishing price in the right circumstances. From its minting details to its appeal among collectors, the 1981 quarter holds a special place in the world of numismatics. And, if you happen to have one of the rare error versions, you could be sitting on a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, the next time you come across a 1981 quarter, remember, it could be worth far more than you ever imagined. Up next, the 1985 USA $quarter coin. What's so special about this seemingly ordinary coin, and why is it worth paying attention to? The 1985 quarter, while it might not immediately seem remarkable, is actually a fascinating piece of US currency with a unique history, subtle design changes, and certain rare errors that have turned it into a coveted item for collectors. Let's take a deep dive into what makes the 1985 quarter a piece of American history and why some of them are worth thousands. Yes, you heard right, thousands of dollars. To start, let's set the scene of the mid-1980s. The United States was transitioning through an interesting economic phase. In 1985, the country was in the midst of a recovery period after years of economic instability. The Reagan administration had taken office a few years earlier, and policies focused on reducing inflation, taxes, and the size of the government were beginning to take effect. It was also a time when consumer confidence was starting to rise, and the American economy was beginning to experience the kind of growth that would continue into the latter half of the 1980s. Against this backdrop of economic recovery, the U.S. Mint was still cranking out its regular coinage, including the Washington quarter, which had been in circulation for decades by this point. The design of the Washington quarter, first introduced in 1932, had become a staple in American coinage. The obverse featured a profile of George Washington, the nation's first president, while the reverse depicted a bald eagle, the emblem of American strength. The design had become iconic, but what most people don't realize is that behind that simple, familiar image, there's an interesting story. The quarter of 1985 was minted using a copper-nickel-clad composition, a material the mint had used since 1965 to reduce costs and respond to rising silver prices. This copper-nickel-clad composition, with its combination of durability and cost-effectiveness, became the standard for the quarter and other coins during that period. Each 1985 quarter weighed 5.67 grams and had a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, no different from most other quarters produced in the 1980s. But while the general look and feel of the 1985 quarter might not seem remarkable, there's something about this particular year that makes it stand out among other quarters in circulation. As with any mass production, there were inevitable variations and errors in the minting process. And that's where things get interesting. While the 1985 quarter was struck in large numbers, some of the coins left the mint with errors that would make them valuable to coin collectors. Some of the key errors that occurred during the minting of the 1985 quarter include double dies, die cracks, and off-center strikes. These types of minting errors can range from subtle to more pronounced, but regardless of the severity, they contribute significantly to the coin's value. A double die, for instance, happens when the design is struck more than once, causing a double image on the coin. This error can occur on both the obverse and reverse sides of the coin, and the more noticeable the doubling, the more valuable the coin becomes. Another notable error in the 1985 quarter was die cracks. A die crack occurs when the minting die itself becomes damaged during the striking process, creating a noticeable crack or line on the coin. In some cases, these cracks can be quite prominent, making them a distinguishing feature of the coin. While die cracks might seem like a small imperfection, they are highly sought after by collectors because they give the coin a unique character and rarity. The discovery of these rare errors has fueled the interest in the 1985 quarter. Unlike most quarters, which circulate without much attention, the error versions of the 1985 quarter are highly collectible and can fetch a significant price. For collectors, it's not just about finding a coin in perfect condition, but rather identifying those coins that are unique in some way, whether due to an error in the minting process or a limited edition. Now, let's talk about value. While the vast majority of 1985 quarters are worth only their face value of 25 cents, the error coins can be worth substantially more. In fact, if you happen to come across a 1985 quarter with a noticeable minting error, say, a double die or a prominent die crack, you could be looking at a coin worth a significant amount of money. The most valuable 1985 quarters, particularly those with well-defined errors, can be sold for as much as $112,000 or even more, depending on the rarity and condition of the coin. So, what makes these error coins so valuable? It comes down to rarity, condition, and demand. Errors in coins are always intriguing to collectors because they represent something that wasn't supposed to happen. These anomalies are rare, and because they can't be easily replicated, they become highly prized items in the numismatic world. A coin that would normally be worth a quarter can suddenly become a small treasure if it has the right error. For those wondering how to spot these rare 1985 quarters, the key is to examine them closely. Look for signs of doubling on the design, cracks on the die, or any other abnormalities. If you have a 1985 quarter that seems different from the rest, it's worth taking a magnifying glass to it to check for any unusual features. Even if the errors are not immediately obvious, some collectors specialize in finding these small discrepancies, and the hunt for these coins can be both thrilling and rewarding. Once you found a coin that you think might be valuable, the next step is to have it authenticated. Professional numismatists can examine your coin and verify whether the error is legitimate, and if so, they can help determine the coin's market value based on its rarity and condition. Having a rare 1985 quarter certified by an expert is the best way to ensure you get the price it truly deserves in the collector's market. To wrap up, the 1985 USA quarter-dollar coin is more than just a piece of currency, it's a piece of American history, a collectible treasure, and a potential windfall for those lucky enough to find the right version. While most 1985 quarters are worth no more than their face value, the rare error coins can fetch a staggering amount. Some of these error coins are valued as high as $112,000, depending on the specifics of the error and the coin's overall condition. So, the next time you come across a 1985 quarter, take a moment to examine it closely. You just might be holding onto a piece of history worth far more than you expected. Up next, let's take a closer look at the 1993 USA quarter-dollar coin, a coin that may seem simple at first glance, but one that holds a rich history and intriguing collector appeal. The story of this coin begins with its design, production, and the fascinating variations that make it so highly sought after today. While many may think of the quarter as a standard, everyday piece of U.S. currency, the 1993 quarter is much more than that. It's a coin that, in the right circumstances, can fetch an impressive value, especially if you happen to find one with rare characteristics or errors. In order to fully appreciate the 1993 quarter, it's important to understand the historical context in which it was minted. The 1990s were a time of significant change and transformation for the United States. The Cold War had ended just a few years earlier, and the country was in the midst of a booming economy. The early 1990s were marked by the administration of President Bill Clinton, who took office in January of 1993. It was a time of growth and prosperity, and the U.S. Mint was hard at work creating the currency needed to meet the demands of a country in economic expansion. The Washington quarter, the design on the obverse front of the 1993 coin, had been a staple of U.S. currency for decades by this point. The design had been introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and it remained largely unchanged for over 60 years. On the obverse, George Washington's profile, facing left, is the focal point. His likeness was designed by sculptor John Flanagan, and it quickly became a symbol of national pride, representing leadership, honor, and the birth of the nation itself. On the reverse, a bald eagle with its wings spread wide takes center stage, symbolizing the strength, resilience, and power of the United States. The 1993 quarter, just like its predecessors, was struck using a copper-nickel-clad composition, a material that had been used since 1965. This material was chosen for its durability and cost-effectiveness, as the mint had stopped using silver in most of its coinage due to rising silver prices. The copper-nickel-clad composition consists of a core of pure copper, with an outer layer of nickel, making the coin both sturdy and affordable for mass production. Each 1993 quarter weighed 5.67 grams and measured 24.3 millimeters in diameter, maintaining the standard size and weight of the quarter for decades. Now, let's focus on the actual minting process of the 1993 quarter. The U.S. Mint, as always, was producing coins at a high volume, with millions of quarters struck to meet the demand for circulating currency. The 1993 quarters were minted at various locations, including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Most of these coins were produced with no significant flaws, and they went on to be circulated across the country in everyday transactions. However, as with any mass production, mistakes do happen, and these mistakes, often referred to as minting errors, are what set certain coins apart and make them especially valuable to collectors. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 1993 quarter, and many other coins produced around this time, is the presence of subtle errors or variations that can elevate a coin from being a simple piece of currency to a prized collector's item. While most 1993 quarters are worth just their face value of 25 cents, there are some that are incredibly rare and can be worth thousands of dollars. These rare coins, often the result of a minting mistake, can be highly sought after by numismatists, or coin collectors, because of their uniqueness and historical significance. Among the most common types of minting errors seen in the 1993 quarter are things like die cracks, double strikes, off-center strikes, and various other small imperfections that occurred during the coin's production. A die crack, for example, is when the die used to strike the design onto the coin becomes damaged, leaving a visible crack on the coin's surface. This crack can often be found in specific locations, such as running through the letters or over the edge of Washington's portrait. While these cracks may seem like a minor flaw, they can actually make the coin more valuable, especially if they are large or easily visible. Another error that collectors often look for in the 1993 quarter is the double strike. A double strike occurs when the coin is struck more than once during the minting process, resulting in a coin that features a blurry or doubled design. This could happen if the coin was fed into the machine incorrectly, or if the die was not aligned properly. A double strike can occur on both the obverse and reverse sides of the coin, and the more dramatic the doubling, the higher the coin's value. Off-center strikes are another error that has been found in some 1993 quarters. This happens when the coin is not positioned correctly on the die, causing the image to be struck in the wrong location. The result is a coin with part of the design missing, or the design may be placed at an odd angle. Off-center coins are considered errors because they deviate from the standard, and collectors are often drawn to these unique coins for their distinctiveness. While these types of errors may seem small, they are incredibly important when it comes to determining a coin's value. In the world of numismatics, rarity and uniqueness are two key factors that can drive up a coin's price. Coins with obvious minting errors are far less common than their correctly minted counterparts, and that rarity is what makes them so valuable. Collectors and dealers alike are always on the lookout for these error coins because they can represent an exciting find, and finding a coin with a major error can be a thrilling experience for anyone involved in the hobby. Now, you might be wondering just how much a 1993 quarter could be worth. The value of a standard 1993 quarter is obviously just 25 cents, but for those with the rare minting errors, the price can increase dramatically. Some of the most valuable 1993 quarters, especially those with well-defined errors, can fetch prices as high as $98,000 or even more, depending on the type of error and the coin's overall condition. That's right, what might seem like just another quarter in your pocket could turn into a small fortune if it has the right kind of flaw. The value of these error coins is determined by several factors: rarity, demand, and condition. The rarer the error, the more desirable the coin becomes to collectors. If the error is particularly pronounced and easy to identify, the coin's value will likely be higher. Additionally, the condition of the coin plays a major role in its value. Coins that are in excellent condition, especially those that have been preserved in mint condition, will generally fetch a higher price than coins that are worn or damaged from circulation. If you suspect that you found a rare 1993 quarter with an error, it's always a good idea to have it authenticated by a professional. A certified numismatist can examine the coin and determine whether the error is legitimate and whether it qualifies as a collectible item. If the coin passes the authentication process, its value can then be determined based on its rarity and condition, and you may find that it's worth much more than you initially thought.